When the police pulled into my driveway with sirens blazing, I thought there had been a robbery. Turns out, I was the suspect in my own garage, holding the keys to my own car. My neighbor, the HOA president, had just called 911 screaming that I stole the car she bought. Asterisk, asterisk, the smell of motor oil still clung to my uniform when I pulled into the driveway that evening. 12 hours at the shop, hands aching, back stiff, but one thought kept me going all day, seeing her again. My 1967 Camaro SS, gleaming in the dim garage light like a piece of living history. Every dent I'd hammered out, every bolt I'd polished, every late night covered in grease had built this moment. I hit the garage remote, and the door lifted with a low, metallic groan. Then there she was, chrome shining, paint so deep you could fall into it. For a second, all the noise of the day disappeared. Just me, my car, and that quiet hum of satisfaction only hard work earns. People don't understand what a machine like that means. To me, it wasn't just a car. It was my therapy, my escape, my proof that something broken can become beautiful again. My old man used to say, anyone can buy fast. Only a real mechanic builds fast. He taught me that in a garage smaller than a bedroom, with tools older than I was. Now, 3 generations later, I was keeping that legacy alive. The neighborhood, Willowbrook Estates. Looked peaceful that night, perfectly trimmed lawns, matching mailboxes. American flags catching the last orange light of sunset. But beneath that calm surface, you could feel something stiff and staged, like everyone was trying too hard to be perfect. I'd only lived there 6 months, and already I could sense the eyes behind the curtains. The whispered HOA gossip carried on evening walks. Then there was Brenda Wilson, the self-appointed queen of Willowbrook. You couldn't miss her, always in pastel suits, always holding a clipboard, like it was a sword. HOA president 3 years running, and proud of it. She had the kind of smile that didn't reach her eyes and a voice sharp enough to cut through drywall. My first week there, she warned me about keeping the property standards appropriate. That should have been my clue. Still, I tried to play by the rules. Quiet weekends, tidy yard, mind my own business. I didn't know that beneath Brenda's polite small talk was a volcano waiting to erupt. I had no idea that the next time I opened that same garage door, it would turn my quiet life into the loudest nightmare of my existence. Asterisk. Brenda Wilson wasn't just an HOA president. She was the kind of woman who treated power like oxygen. Without it, she'd suffocate. She'd moved into Willowbrook 5 years before me, and somehow turned a quiet suburban community into her personal kingdom. Her house, of course, was flawless white shutters, manicured hedges, a welcome mat that lied through its teeth. Every morning, she marched her tiny white dog down the street like a parade marshal, inspecting her troops. Eyes darting from mailbox to mailbox, judging everything she saw. The first time she came over, I thought she was being neighborly. She wasn't. It was a Saturday, and I was bleeding brake lines on the Camaro. Music low, tools out, coffee half finished. Suddenly, a shadow fell across my driveway. "Excuse me," she said, crossing her arms. "There's a noise ordinance in this neighborhood. Power tools aren't allowed after 6. I checked my watch. It was 5:42. "Actually, city law allows hobby work until 9, I replied, trying to sound polite. "I'm almost done," she smiled. But it wasn't a smile you trust. "Well, we'll see about that." That was Brenda, polite enough to look legal, mean enough to make you doubt yourself. From that moment, she had me marked. Every week a new complaint. Trash can left out too long. Grass exceeds regulation height. Work van parked too close to sidewalk. She even measured my fence posts once with an actual ruler. I couldn't tell if she hated me because I was new or because I didn't fit her picture-perfect version of Willowbrook. Either way, she wanted control, and I represented resistance. The irony was, everyone feared her, but no one liked her. I'd see neighbors look away when she walked by, muttering under their breath once she passed. But no one ever stood up to her. That's how people like Brenda stay in power. Not because they're strong, because everyone else is too tired to fight. Still, I kept my head down. Fix cars, pay bills. Live quiet. That was the plan. Until one Saturday afternoon, when her voice drifted over my fence, cutting through the sound of my socket wrench like a bad song. She was throwing another one of her pool parties, mimosas, gossip, and designer sunglasses. But this time, I heard my name in her mouth. And my car? Oh, that's my new Camaro, she bragged to her guests. Just bought it from a dealer in Phoenix. $45,000, but worth every penny. They're shipping it next week. My hands froze. My wrench hit the floor. I peered through the blinds. She was showing pictures on her phone, photos of my car, down to the chrome trim and hugger orange paint. That was the moment. I realized Brenda's obsession had crossed into something dangerous, and I had no idea it was only the beginning. Asterisk that night, I couldn't get Brenda's words out of my head. That's my new Camaro. It played on repeat like a bad song. I wanted to believe she was just confused, maybe showing off pictures she found online or trying to impress her friends. But deep down, something didn't sit right. The way she looked at my garage lately, too long, too curious, like she was memorizing it. The next morning, I was detailing the Camaro's hood when I noticed her again standing in her driveway, phone in hand, pretending to take photos of her roses. But her camera was aimed squarely at my car. When I met her eyes, she flinched, turned away, and hurried inside. My gut twisted. This wasn't curiosity anymore. It was fixation. 2 days later, I fired up the engine for a quick test drive. That 350 small block roared like thunder, smooth, proud, alive. The kind of sound that makes car lovers stop and stare. As I rolled down the street, I caught sight of Brenda again. Arms crossed, lips tight, watching. The look on her face wasn't admiration. It was ownership. I should have known something was coming. I just didn't expect it to happen so fast. The next weekend, I came home from a parts store run. The sun was low, painting the street in gold. I pressed the garage remote and the door began to lift slow, steady, revealing my car's orange glow beneath the light. Then I heard it, thief. The word hit me like a slap. I turned. Brenda was storming across her lawn, phone to her ear, voice shrill enough to pierce glass. Yes, there's a man stealing my car. He's right here. Send the police now. For a second, I thought it was a joke. Then I saw the fury in her eyes, the conviction. She believed it. She believed my car was hers. Within minutes, I heard sirens. 2, maybe 3 units screaming down the street. My hands went cold. Neighbors stepped out, whispering. Cameras recording, and there I was, standing in my own driveway, holding my own keys, surrounded by flashing lights and disbelief. I didn't know it yet, but that was the moment my quiet life ended, and the fight for my name. My freedom and my dignity began. Asterisk, the sirens grew louder. Bouncing off the houses like thunder trapped in a canyon, my stomach dropped. This couldn't be real. I was standing in my own driveway, keys in hand, but Brenda's shrill voice cut through the noise like a knife. That's him. That's the thief. 2 patrol cars screeched to a stop, tires biting the pavement, doors slammed. Flashlights snapped on. Sir, step away from the vehicle. One officer ordered, hand resting on his weapon. My pulse spiked. I froze, afraid to even breathe wrong. Officers, I began, keeping my voice calm. This is my car. I live here. Brenda marched up behind them, phone still recording, face flushed with righteous fury. He stole my Camaro. I just bought it yesterday from a dealer in Phoenix. I have the photos right here. Her confidence was unreal. She waved printed pictures, glossy stock images straight from some dealership site. The officers exchanged glances. One of them, Rodriguez, looked older, calm, like he'd seen every flavor of neighborhood crazy. The other, younger and tense, kept his hand near his holster. Ma'am, we'll sort this out, Rodriguez said, then turned to me. Do you have proof of ownership? Yes, sir, everything. I reached slowly for my phone, hands shaking. In seconds, my life could flip, depending on how these men interpreted one wrong movement. I showed them photos, dated progress shots of the Camaro's entire rebuild, The rusted frame, the primer coats, the engine installation, every stage. I even had videos. Rodriguez scrolled through the gallery, nodding. You did all this work yourself? Family business, I said. My grandfather was a mechanic. My dad taught me. I've been rebuilding cars since I was 15. Meanwhile, Brenda was unraveling. He's lying. Those photos could be fake. I wired the money yesterday. Her voice cracked. They were shipping it this week. Rodriguez held out his hand. Can I see your bill of sale, ma'am? Brenda hesitated. It's processing. The dealer said the paperwork takes time. He exhaled through his nose. That slow, weary sigh of a man realizing he's wasting his evening on nonsense. I walked to my workbench, retrieved the Holy Grail, a 3-ring binder stuffed with receipts, DMV registration, and insurance papers. Here's my registration VIN. Matches the car, insurance, and original sale document. The officer's flashlight glided over every page, every signature. Everything matched. Rodriguez closed the binder gently. Ma'am, this gentleman's paperwork is complete and verified. Your photos are dealership stock. I'm going to have to file this as a false report. The color drained from Brenda's face. You can't. He's dangerous. But the officers were already walking back to their cars as the lights faded. I stood there in the quiet night, heart pounding, neighbors whispering. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I felt a chill crawl up my spine. Because when someone like Brenda loses control, they don't back off. They reload. Asterisk, I thought the worst was over after that night. The cops left. My name was cleared. The truth was on my side. But I didn't realize something far more dangerous had been unleashed. Brenda's humiliation. And humiliation, for someone like her, is the ultimate fuel. 2 mornings later, I found an envelope taped to my mailbox. Notice of violation. Apparently, my work van, a plain white Ford Transit, with Rodriguez Family Auto painted on the side, violated HOA community standards. The fine, $200. Deadline, 48 hours. At the bottom was her signature, perfectly looped in blue ink. Brenda Wilson, HOA president. I laughed at first. Then I saw her standing across the street, coffee mug in hand, watching me read it. That smile, polite, venomous, told me exactly what this was. This wasn't about a car anymore. This was war. Over the next week, the violations multiplied like weeds. Oil stains on driveway, noise disturbance during off hours. Unauthorized mechanical activity, she'd even written. Odor of automotive chemicals negatively impacting neighboring properties. Odor, I was being fined for the smell of car polish every time I stepped outside. She was there jogging past my house 5-6 times a day, pretending to be out for exercise, but her eyes were scanning, calculating, searching for the next excuse. My driveway had become a battlefield. My mailbox, her weapon. But my father always told me, paper beats anger. So I started collecting everything. Every notice, every timestamp, every rule she twisted. I spent my lunch breaks reading HOA bylaws and city ordinances like a lawyer studying for trial, and that's when I found it. The HOA regulation banning commercial vehicles was added in 2020, 3 years after I'd bought my van. A clause buried deep in the document said, existing owners prior to rule change are exempt. In other words, my van was grandfathered in. Brenda's fine wasn't just wrong, it was illegal. I drafted a letter that night, stapled copies of my purchase paperwork, and hand-delivered it to the HOA management office. The receptionist's eyes widened as she read it. Oh dear, she whispered. Mrs. Wilson isn't going to like this. Good, I thought. For once, she'd have to taste her own medicine. But Brenda didn't slow down. She doubled down. 3 more violations appeared in my mailbox before the week ended. It was no longer about HOA rules. This was personal. And as I stared at the newest letter, a chill ran down my spine. Because Brenda wasn't trying to find me anymore. She was trying to break me. Asterisk, by the second week, Brenda had turned my life into a full-time chess match. Every morning I woke up wondering what rule I'd supposedly broken overnight. She wasn't just an HOA president anymore. She was a warden, and I was her favorite prisoner. One morning, caught her crouched by our shared fence, measuring something with a metal ruler. When she noticed me watching, she smiled, waved the ruler, and said, "Just ensuring property boundaries are consistent." Then she snapped a photo of my garage. That was the moment I stopped laughing about it. That night, I went online and ordered for high-definition security cameras. If Brenda wanted to play surveillance queen, I'd give her a taste of professional-level monitoring. By Saturday, I had them installed front yard, driveway, side gate, and one aimed squarely at my garage. Motion-activated, night vision, and cloud-backed. Every angle covered, it didn't take long for the truth to show up on screen. The first night, 2:14 a.m., my phone pinged. Motion detected. I checked the feed. There she was. Brenda, flashlight in hand, robe wrapped tight, tiptoeing along our fence like a cartoon burglar. She leaned over, snapping photos, whispering into her phone, probably filing another report. The next morning, another violation letter waited for me. Unauthorized lighting on side property wall. The light she'd photographed was the same motion lamp that triggered her visit. She wasn't even hiding it anymore. She was hunting. I shared the footage with my neighbor, Tom. Tom was one of those quiet types, mid-40s postal worker, minding his business until Brenda fined him for leaving his garbage bin out 10 minutes too long. When I showed him the video, his eyebrows shot up. "She's been doing this for months," he said. "Not just you. Half the block's scared of her. She files complaints just to remind everyone she's watching." That night, a few of us gathered in Tom's garage, the unofficial meeting spot of Brenda's victims. There was Linda, fined for planting flowers that weren't community approved. Mike cited for parking his motorcycle in his own driveway. And Sarah, who'd been written up for having a decorative flag that didn't match HOA standards. We compared stories and realized something chilling. Every one of us had been targeted right. Before a house on our street went up for sale, Brenda's pattern wasn't random. She was strategically pushing people until they sold their homes, then listing them herself as a realtor. It wasn't just harassment, it was a hustle. When I got home that night, I watched the camera feed again, Brenda pacing in front of my house, phone raised, lips moving, recording something. I zoomed in. Her expression wasn't angry anymore. It was calculating. She didn't see me as a neighbor. She saw me as her next payday, and that realization flipped a switch inside me. I wasn't just going to defend myself anymore. I was going to expose her. Asterisk, once I knew Brenda's attacks had a pattern, I couldn't ignore it. She wasn't just targeting random homeowners. She was selecting them like a hunter marking prey. Every violation, every fine, every complaint. All leading to one thing: someone moving out, and Brenda collecting a commission. I decided to prove it. The next morning, I took my lunch break early and drove to the county courthouse. The records office smelled like dust, old paper, and bureaucracy. When I asked about the Willowbrook HOA filings, the clerk, a woman who looked like she'd been there since Nixon, squinted at me, sighed, and pointed to a back room filled with boxes. "It's all in there somewhere, sweetheart. Good luck." 3 hours later, buried in documents that could double as firewood, I found it: HOA expense reports, signed by Brenda herself. $8,500 to Brenda's Best Gardens for landscaping that never happened. $12,000 to Wilson and Associates, her ex-husband's law firm. And $15,000 to a shell company called B&B Property Solutions, which according to the State Business Registry was registered to Brenda Wilson. My jaw tightened. She was stealing from her neighbors. The woman writing me $200 fines for imaginary oil stains had embezzled nearly $80,000 from the community. But that wasn't all. When I cross-referenced HOA complaints with property sales, the picture became even darker. Families she'd harassed the hardest, the Hendersons, the Patels, the Lees, had all sold their homes within months of her campaign. Below market sales. And each one was listed through Brenda's real estate license. That's when everything clicked. She wasn't just a control freak. She was running a suburban extortion racket. Harass, pressure, force a sale, profit. A perfect scheme, till I moved in. I photocopied everything, tucking the pages into a manila folder like they were gold. But the deeper I dug, the more twisted the truth became. Buried at the bottom of the filings, I found something that made my hands tremble. Brenda's own home was in foreclosure. Over $23,000 in unpaid HOA dues to her own association. Her empire was collapsing. I'd been her last desperate attempt to grab one more payday before the whole thing came crashing down. That night, I sat in my garage staring at my Camaro, the one she'd tried to claim as hers. The orange paint shimmered under the fluorescent lights like a symbol of defiance. Brenda wasn't just corrupt. She was desperate. And desperate people are dangerous. I called Tom. I found something, I said quietly. By the time I finished explaining, he was already gathering the neighbors. This isn't just an HOA issue, he said. This is criminal. And in that moment, I realized something important. I wasn't alone anymore. We were going to fight back, not just to protect our homes, but to take our neighborhood back. Brenda had started a war. She just didn't know we were about to finish it. We met in Tom's garage the next evening, 6 neighbors. One folding table and a pot of coffee strong enough to power a generator. The air smelled like motor oil, fear, and determination. On the table sat the folder of evidence I'd gathered, financial statements, violation letters, and screenshots of Brenda's harassment campaign. Tom looked around the room. We've all been dealing with her for years. But now we've got proof. Real, legal proof. Everyone leaned in. Sarah, a forensic accountant, started flipping through the papers with laser focus. Unreal, she muttered. These payments aren't just shady, they're criminal. This is textbook embezzlement. She's been using HOA funds to pay for her divorce lawyers and fake maintenance companies. Mike, a semi-retired lawyer, pushed his glasses up his nose and grinned like a wolf who smelled blood. If this holds up, she's facing felony charges. Fraud, misappropriation of funds, maybe even mail fraud, depending on how she filed these reports. Linda, the high school teacher who once got fined for non-regulation petunias, crossed her arms. So what's our next step? We can't just send this to the HOA office. She is the HOA, Tom smiled. That's why we're forming our own operation. Operation HOA Justice. It sounded corny, but in that moment, it felt like the title of a war movie. We divided tasks like a tactical unit. Sarah would handle the audit, track every dollar Brenda had stolen. Mike would prepare the legal complaints and coordinate with law enforcement. Linda would document every harassment incident from every homeowner, compiling a master timeline of her abuse, and me. I'd handle the surveillance. I upgraded our neighborhood cameras into a private network, linking feeds from multiple houses to a single cloud drive. If Brenda so much as sneezed on someone's property, it would be on record in HD, and Brenda, bless her narcissistic soul, made our job easy. The more cornered she felt, the louder she got. She started pacing the neighborhood, shouting into her phone about traitors undermining community. Order. She left new violation letters. Stuffed in mailboxes at 2 a.m., she even tried to ban all mechanical activity through an emergency HOA board meeting that consisted of herself and her 2 silent followers. Mike drafted a letter, citing 3 state laws and 2 federal codes invalidating her fake meeting. Sarah started sending her findings to a contact at the district attorney's office. And Tom began recruiting the rest of the neighborhood, one conversation at a time. Within 2 weeks, half of Willowbrook Estates was united. People who used to smile nervously and hide now waved at me, thanked me, and whispered, "We're with you," for the first time. Brenda's fear tactics were backfiring. Then came the moment we'd been waiting for. One of our cameras caught her at 2:47 a.m. sneaking around my driveway, again this time with a can of spray paint and a bag of roofing nails. She was planting evidence, trying to stage environmental damage and vandalism. Her entire performance, caught in 4K clarity. When I showed the footage to Officer Rodriguez the next morning, He didn't even try to hide his smirk. "Looks like your HOA president just turned into a criminal suspect." He took the footage as official evidence and handed me his card. "Keep recording. She's going to implode soon." She did, spectacularly. Because once Brenda realized the neighborhood wasn't afraid of her anymore, she started unraveling in public. Her perfect suburban mask cracked. And when that mask fell, everyone saw what she really was: a bully with a clipboard and a secret worth destroying herself to protect. Asterisk. It started on a quiet Tuesday night, the kind of silence that feels heavy, like the air itself is waiting for something to happen. Brenda's world was about to implode. She just didn't know it yet. At 2:33 a.m., the HOA management office alarm went off. When Officer Rodriguez arrived, he found Brenda elbow-deep in a shredder, destroying files like her life depended on it. Documents flew everywhere. Fragments of checks, letters, and voices all raining down like confetti of guilt. When he shouted, "Hands where I can see them," she froze, mascara streaked, hair wild, eyes wide with panic. "You don't understand," she screamed. "They're destroying everything I built." Rodriguez cuffed her calmly. "Ma'am, looks like you're the one doing the destroying." By morning, the news spread faster than wildfire. The self-proclaimed Queen of Willowbrook was arrested, caught red-handed shredding her own evidence. Neighbors peeked through blinds, whispering. For years, Brenda had ruled through fear. Now, she was the spectacle. 2 days later, we held an emergency HOA meeting, the first one in years that didn't feel like a hostage situation. 43 homeowners packed into the community center, the air thick with fury and caffeine. Sarah presented the final audit, her voice steady, precise, lethal. Over $112,000 diverted from HOA funds into Brenda's personal accounts, she announced. And here's the kicker. She never paid her own dues. Not once in 18 months. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone muttered, "She'll fine me for leaving my trash out, and she hasn't paid her own bills?" Tom stepped forward, holding up a copy of the audit. "We're filing a criminal complaint as a community. Tonight." The vote to remove Brenda as HOA president was unanimous. For the first time since moving into Willowbrook, I saw real unity. Neighbors shaking hands, sharing stories, laughing. It felt normal, human. A week later, the story hit the local news. Channel 7 led with HOA president arrested in massive embezzlement and harassment scandal. There she was on TV, orange jumpsuit, pale face, eyes hollow. The same woman who once measured my grass with a ruler now looked like someone measuring her regrets. Reporters. "Mr. Rodriguez," one asked, "you were her main target. What do you think now?" I paused before answering. "This was never about revenge," I said. "It was about accountability. Nobody, not even an HOA president, gets to weaponize power against their neighbors." The court hearings came next. Brenda's lawyer tried to paint her as a misguided perfectionist under financial strain. But the evidence spoke louder than any excuse. Hours of footage, bank records, false reports, forged invoices. When the judge read her sentence for years in state prison, full restitution and probation, the courtroom erupted in applause. Even the bailiff cracked a smile as they led her away. Brenda turned to me. For a second, our eyes met. There was no apology. No remorse. Just cold, burning hatred outside. Neighbors hugged. Cameras flashed. Tom clapped me on the back. "You didn't just fix cars, Marcus. You fixed this whole neighborhood." I looked up at the clear sky, the quiet street, the homes once divided now connected. "Guess you could say," I said softly, "justice finally took the wheel." But deep down, I knew the story wasn't just about her downfall. It was about what happens when ordinary people finally say enough. 6 months later. Willowbrook Estates didn't even look like the same neighborhood. The tension that used to hang over every morning like fog had lifted. No more passive-aggressive notes on mailboxes. No more rulers measuring grass. No more whispered threats disguised as community standards. Now, there were barbecues. Kids rode bikes without parents glancing nervously at the HOA office. Neighbors waved, not out of obligation, but because they meant it. Tom was the new HOA president, and under his leadership, things actually made sense. Sarah became treasurer, keeping finances transparent with online reports posted every month. Mike handled the legal side, making sure every rule was fair and documented. And Linda started a community garden in the empty field behind the clubhouse. The same spot Brenda once labeled restricted use. That patch of dirt was now filled with tomatoes, basil, and laughter. As for me, I just wanted my quiet back. The garage became my sanctuary again. The hum of the engine, the smell of oil and polish, my peace restored. But it was different now, because every time I looked at that Camaro, I didn't just see a car. I saw a battle I'd fought, and one not with fists or fury, but with proof, patience, and unity. Funny thing about Brenda's story, it didn't end when she went to prison. Her downfall became a wildfire of awareness. Other neighborhoods reached out, people who'd been bullied, manipulated, or fined into silence by their own HOA dictators. They wanted to know how we did it, how we fought back, how we won. So I started helping them. I shared our evidence templates, our camera setups, our meeting strategies. Soon, our little suburb became a case study in accountability. Local papers called it the Willowbrook Rebellion. Channel 7 even did a follow-up segment titled, How One Mechanic's Garage Sparked an HOA Revolution. But the part that hit me hardest came later, the kids. Every Saturday, I'd have a few of them over to learn about cars. Linda's nephew, Diego, was the first. He reminded me of myself, curious, stubborn, hands too small for a wrench but big enough for ambition. When he graduated from community college with an automotive tech degree, I gave him my old set of ratchets. He looked at me like I'd handed him Excalibur, the scholarship that funded his tuition. Came from Brenda's restitution payments. Poetic, right? The woman who tried to destroy me ended up financing the next generation of mechanics. One afternoon, I was wiping down the Camaro when Tom stopped by with 2 beers. He leaned against the garage doorway, grinning. You ever realize how poetic this all turned out? I laughed. Poetics, one word for it. Exhausting's another. He raised his bottle. To neighborhood justice, clinked mine against his, and to learning that the loudest person isn't always the right one. That night, I scrolled through the old footage, the police lights, the violation letters, the neighborhood meetings. It felt like watching someone else's life. I wasn't the same man I'd been when this started. Back then, I just wanted peace. Now, I understood something deeper. Peace isn't given. It's protected. The Camaro idled softly in the background, that deep rumble echoing through the garage. I smiled. We made it, old girl, I whispered. She gleamed under the light, the same car that had started the chaos. Now a symbol of victory. When the next HOA newsletter went out, it wasn't about fines or warnings. It was about the community garden, the new playground project, and an upcoming block party. The closing line read, Because good neighbors don't need rules to do what's right. Standing there, surrounded by the hum of a peaceful street, I realized something simple but powerful. This wasn't just about one corrupt woman or one stolen piece of mind. It was about the bigger idea that ordinary people can fight back against extraordinary wrongs. That truth, when documented and shared, can dismantle entire systems of abuse. And that sometimes, the strongest engine in any community isn't made of steel. It's made of people who finally stand together. So when viewers ask what I learned from all this, I tell them, document everything. Stand firm. And remember, truth doesn't need permission to shine, because the day. Brenda called 911 to accuse me of stealing my own car. She didn't just start a fight. She started a movement.